So the most common message that I've been getting over the past few weeks is, Acheeto, are you gonna cover the Quite situation? And I wasn't. I really wasn't, because all that I had to cover was one side of the story, and I really didn't feel comfortable basically airing one side of this very serious situation as if it was fact, as if it was confirmed, as if there wasn't an entire other side to the story. And while it is true that I could have reported on these accusations while still being impartial, while still acknowledging that it was inconclusive, while there was another side to the story, I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. And on top of that, the only evidence that was given by the accuser to begin with was a personal testimony of what happened. It was quite literally a he said, she said. Well, I guess it would have been a he said, because I'm pretty sure he was dating a guy. But the point is I really didn't want to go in front of a microphone and make some definitive claims about what exactly happened. And on top of all of that, I've had only good interactions with Quite. I've had nothing but friendly conversations with him in our direct messages. And I know that really doesn't mean much, but I'm a loyal person, and although I don't know the guy too well, it just seemed like it would have been totally venomous to take something that a random stranger said on the internet with little to no proof and just report on it for my YouTube channel for some quick views. And boy, am I glad that I didn't make a video on this. Because yesterday, Quite made a 1 hour and 30-minute response video to this entire situation where he systematically debunks almost everything in, I think, the single best response video I've ever seen on YouTube. And I feel comfortable at this point making the claim that the real victim in this situation is Quite. Now, I urge all of you to go watch his video if you haven't yet already. He deserves your attention right now more than I do, so if you haven't yet seen his response, go watch it. But one of the points that Quite makes is that the person that is accusing him currently also tried to do the same thing back a few years ago in a YouTube video. Quite cross-references the version of events told in this video with the version of events that is being told now as he's being accused. Doing so, he's able to highlight the vast inconsistencies with the story being told, while simultaneously adding new information to the table that has not been brought up. Like the fact that even though Quite is being accused of SA, that he is on the record spoken about the fact that he's uncomfortable with any sort of physical intimacy. The amount of personal information and personal details that you can tell he's uncomfortable sharing on camera really hammers home that he just wants to tell the truth and clear his name from the false accusations that have been made toward him. The fact that his identity, which I don't even know if he ever planned on revealing, is now public to millions of people, right? Like he had to face reveal because of this, because the accuser leaked his face. The fact that I would say like dozens of traumatic events that he was involved in were brought up within this video that he not only had to recall for a YouTube video, but explained them all in front of, like I said, millions of people is sad, it's unfair, and it never should have had to happen. From the interactions that I've had with Quite, he never seemed like he was ever really too inclined to show his face. I genuinely think he would have been fine doing YouTube the rest of his career with the entire glasses, mask, and hoodie thing. After all, that's what his entire brand was built off of. That's how he got to where he is now. Why would he ever change that? And on top of that, of course, there's the benefit of, you know, privacy. Like one time I asked him what state he lived in, and he seemed uncomfortable even sharing that information with me. So obviously, you know, I kind of backed off. I didn't really bother him with that, but you can just sort of tell like he cares a lot about his personal life. He wants it to be separate from YouTube. And that's something that he literally had to throw out the window, and then after throwing it out the window, he jumped out that same window, picked it up, and threw it into an incinerator. It's not fair. It's really not fair, and it's just like, it sucks because it almost feels like in a sense there was no other way to deal with this. Like, I mean, there probably was, but what he did was the most effective, and I think that's the part that sucks. Like, you really shouldn't have to do everything that he did in order for it to be the most effective response. I don't want to sit here and list every single thing that he leaked about himself within his video, his response, because it's a lot of personal information that, you know, if he had the option to not release it, he would have taken that route. So I don't want to sit here and repeat it to pour salt in the wound. You know, like I said, go watch his video. But yeah, I want to say after watching that response, I stand and support Quite in this endeavor, in what he's had to go through. I think it's disgusting. I don't think anybody should have to do everything that he did in order to deal with a he said, she said sort of accusation. What Quite was accused of is quite literally, and swear to God, no pun intended, life-ruining. Something that he could have been investigated by the police for, something that he could have been thrown in jail for, let alone have his entire public image, reputation, YouTube channel, career, everything destroyed. And he poured his heart out in this response, gave us everything and more that we needed to hear, and I think he's owed more than just an apology. Like, if I'm Quite, I am now going to pursue legal action against those who defamed me. This Orion person who made this twitlonger on Quite needs to be held accountable, and I'm not saying some like, oh, you know, ratio them on Twitter, you know, block them on Twitter. I'm talking about filing a defamation lawsuit because Quite lost like 30,000 Twitter followers, tens of thousands of YouTube subscribers, got flooded with dislikes, people were calling him the worst things that you can call somebody, and Quite extensively invalidated pretty much everything that was shown. And after this happens, I'm not comfortable with people just adding me on Twitter and saying, oh, I'm sorry I accused you, oh, I'm sorry that I spread these lies, oh, I'm sorry that I unfollowed you, DM'd my 20 friends and told them to unfollow you, and then made 50 other accounts on YouTube to dislike your latest video on. Like, that sorry just isn't enough, dude. Like, I want justice. And you could say that justice is him getting 175,000 likes to only 1,000 dislikes on his response video. You could say justice is the, influx of people now subscribing again after this has been cleared up, but I think it's fair to assume that the time period between when he got accused and when he responded was probably some of the most sleepless, stressful nights he's had in his entire career, let alone maybe his entire life. It had to be straight up mental agony, and I think the person responsible for this needs to, like, actually pay. Maybe Quite is okay with, letting bygones be bygones, but if it's me, I'm pressing charges, I'm taking legal action, I'm making things right. However, I don't think Quite is gonna go the route of legal action because on his alt Twitter he said, "We'll be AFK after this, but I said it in my video, the folks who condemned me early are doing what I did in a similar situation, so please give them the charitability I wish I was given when making a serious mistake." Now, Quite is referring to a situation, I think in either 2017 or 2018, where he hopped on a sort of like believe all victims bandwagon, where this girl came forward and basically accused a YouTuber, Slazo, of doing some bad things, and Slazo debunked it, but a lot of creators at the time simply believed what this girl was saying at face value, and one of those creators was Quite. There were some other big YouTubers involved in blindly believing her, so Quite wasn't alone, but Quite seems to be not that mad at the people that were just hopping on the believe all victims sort of bandwagon at the beginning of his accusations, which I think instead of him just being like, "Oh, I did the same thing, it's fine, I understand where you guys came from when you sort of did what you did," I think we should actually start operating underneath the innocent until proven guilty mindset. Because hypothetically, if Quite responded with a terrible response where it actually turned out what the accuser said is true, you don't lose anything for not initially supporting the accuser. All you did was stay silent and wait. Waiting to hear both sides to a story does not make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you don't believe victims, it just means that you want a holistic picture of what is actually going on. Jumping to conclusions is very harmful. I mean, I think we've been told that since infancy, don't jump to conclusions. So I don't know why it was so hard for the people on Twitter, and I even saw some YouTube videos just basically claiming that, yeah, Quite is guilty. Just right off the bat, he's guilty. Like, we don't even need to hear a single word that comes out of his mouth because the verdict is that he's guilty. And while we're on the topic of initial reactions and responses, I want to say, if you're one of the people that milked this situation, bro, you gotta find a better shtick. Make some real content. Like, I'm not here to even have some debate as to whether or not it's, like, ethical or morally wrong to milk somebody getting accused of, like, the worst thing ever for content. Like, that's a completely separate discussion, but I just want to say, if you just, like, need to make, like, 7 to 10 videos on somebody getting accused of the worst thing ever, back to back to back to back, like, that's the other thing. These people were uploading a Quite quote-unquote update every single day. For the health of your channel, you should make something else, because if people subscribe to you just because you talked about Quite, when everybody stops talking about this and moves on in a couple of days, and you try to make a video about something else, nobody's gonna watch. And you may say, well, Acheeto, didn't you milk the Call Me Carson accusations? I made 4 videos in the span of over a month about the actual accusations, and everything else that I've talked about regarding Call Me Carson has been like, oh, where is he at now, and what's he doing? And on top of all of that, the stuff that Quite was being accused of is way worse than anything that Carson was accused of. The worst thing that Carson was getting accused of was that he was, like, abusing his position of power when he was 19 to have a relationship with a 17-year-old, which is nothing compared to what Quite is getting accused of. So that also kind of added to the fact that I was more okay talking about the Carson stuff. So yeah, I think the people that made like 7 to 10 videos within the span of 7 to 10 days about this situation are very desperate for views. So yeah, that's that. That's all I really have to say about this situation. Kind of a wild ride, but yeah, if you ended up enjoying this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Comment down alarm clock if you made it to the end of the video. Follow my social medias, links are all down below, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Goodbye.